very little has been said about the refugees, the Jewish refugees that came through Portugal, mainly in 1941-42. Actually, they started coming to Portugal already in 1933, mainly from Germany. My father at the time, he was invited, an Ashkenazi rabbi, young rabbi, 28 or 29 years old, to come to Lisbon. So he was a man that spoke a few languages. So, of course, when the refugees started coming, he found mainly a Portuguese community, and my father played a very central action. He was very central because he spoke all these languages, and of course, many people looked for some psychological and religious comfort with the rabbi. So everybody was knocking his door in his office, asking, you received the list, the list from the Joint Distribution Committee, from Caritas, which was part of the church. And my father was very close to the Cardinal of Portugal at the time, Cardinal Cerejeira, which actually means Kirschbaum. So my father said, well, Kirschbaum is a Jewish name, Cardinal. So he answered, we are all cousins, Rabbi. No news about that. So he had a very, very good contact, and he was really an extraordinary man. And I've been studying a little bit the history of those days, and many people mention him as a very, very special man that really helped in finding mainly children that were hidden in convents, in Catholic schools, in Catholic homes. And somehow, much has been spoken about the church in those days, but the church had a lot of lists and information about where Jewish people were hiding. So he gave most of these lists to my father, and that was very, very important, because that helped, find a direction in France, in Spain, in where are they, how many children. At the time, Joint Distribution Committee and HIAS, mainly these two institutions, were not authorized to establish themselves in Spain, which was a neutral country. So they asked Portugal to authorize them to work in Spain, in Portugal. And the government authorized them to come. So Portugal was mainly the center of the Joint Distribution Committee at the time in Europe, the Jewish Agency for Palestine. They came late. They said themselves that they were late in coming into the project from Israel at the time, 1941-42. But they were very interested in the emigration of these refugees into Israel, into Palestine as well. The confusion was so big that in my house, in my parents' house, Moshe Sharet comes in, the first foreign minister of Israel, comes to Portugal and meets at our home. He and another very famous general in Israel, David Shaltiel, who was very much responsible for the fight in Jerusalem in 1948, a very, very, very big character in the scenario of Israel at the time. So David Shaltiel and Moshe Sharet come and have meeting at our home how to resolve this passage of the Jews. So many people had already visas for United States, for South America. And I must say that although very much has been written about it, it was not easy because all these countries established a clausus number, numerus clausus. So there were no, for instance, Brazil and Argentina had very, very serious numerus clausus to accept Jews. So again, with Portuguese, the rabbi had to have contacts a little bit with the consuls or the ambassadors of this country and go with the refugees and sit with them and explain the situation when they wanted to receive. But since he was the rabbi, he was on an official position, this sort of consuls of these countries did not want to establish a conflict, an open conflict, which somehow, did put these countries in a bad. But we must say, that. So they found, for instance, Cuba at the time that wanted to, yes, bring in the Jews. And there were some other countries in South America, and Canada was very willing. But the big objective of the refugees was United States, and United States was very, very difficult.